Welcome to the Shabbat Channel, a taste of CSAIR in your inbox. We wish that we could be with you in person, but for now we think this is the next best thing. So check out this week's episode for music from an amazing artist and Torah from our own CSAIR community. For now, you'll have to supply the Kiddush. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Mark Cooper, a congregational rabbi and a mohel, and together with my wife Amy, we are happy and proud members of CSAIR. I hope you're doing well and that you found a way to cope with this week's blizzard. Despite the inconvenience it brought into our lives, such moments point us toward the wonder and beauty of the world that God made and entrusted to us. Rabbi Neil Gilman, Alav HaShalom, taught that chapters 19 and 20 of the book of Exodus, which fall in Parashat Yitro, are the most foundational passages in all of Torah. Our understanding of exactly what happened at Sinai, of exactly what God said that day to our ancestors and to us, opens the door to our relationship with God and to our grasp of religious ideology. So much of the way we relate to Judaism, including halacha, Jewish law, and the impact and place it has in our lives, the decisions we make about how to live, can be traced back to what we believe happened when the Israelites met God at the foot of Mount Sinai soon after leaving Egypt. The story of God's revelation to the people of Israel tells of a grand and dramatic moment, replete with smoke and fire and kol hashofar, the loud blare of the shofar filling the air. I think of the scene, perhaps something like the moments before the start of a professional sports game in an arena, pre-pandemic of course, with lights flashing and a loud voice overwhelming the crowd and getting them psyched for the introduction of the teams. The text tells us that the mountain shook violently, the shofar grew louder and louder, and the people trembled as God's voice was like the sound of thunder. This was the moment that God spoke the Aseret HaDibrot, commonly known as the 10 Commandments. But exactly what did God say? And what was heard? How that question is answered, Rabbi Gilman taught, lays the groundwork for our personal theology and our Jewish ideology. Was it the explicit word and will of God that was spoken that day? Or did God leave the understanding of his will left to the imagination of those present and all who would follow them for generations to come? Franz Rosenzweig, the great German Jewish philosopher, wrote that God has said nothing more than the first word of the first commandment, Anochi, I am. That's it. That's all that God said at the moment of revelation, Anochi. Only a single word, but a powerful one that affirms divine existence. From that single word, all of Torah flowed forth, not only that day, but for an eternity. I find Rosenzweig's teaching compelling. By affirming the existence of God, we change the course of our lives. If we believe that God exists, if we believe that we are in the presence of God, then we will behave differently, because we will be convinced that we are summoned to a life of goodness and decency, a life of caring and thoughtful behavior. Anochi, I am. Maybe that's all that was said by God that day. Many of the Hasidic masters were Kabbalists, and the subject of revelation appears frequently in their writings. Dr. Ariel Mays of Stanford University and the American Jewish University in Los Angeles writes that, quote, many of the Hasidic masters thought of revelation as the unfolding process in which the ineffable divine is translated into human language, unquote. Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Rimanov, who lived in Poland from 1745 to 1815, was one such master. Both a Talmudist and a Kabbalist, this great sage taught that the Israelites heard only the first letter of the first word of the first commandment uttered that day, the Aleph of Anochi. And what is that? What sound does it make? It's silent. For Menachem Mendel of Rimanov, the entire revelation was a moment of silence, a time for each individual present and engaged to experience God in a deeply personal and intimate way. All of our Torah, our common understanding of what it means to live a Jewish life, was and is understood intuitively through study and dialogue. The content of Torah, therefore, is our collective and honest understanding of what God expects from us. What can we take away from Menachem Mendel of Rimanov's teaching about revelation, that it was given in silence? I think at least 3 points. First, like our Israelite ancestors, we are challenged to develop our own understanding of God, our personal understanding of God, and to create an individual connection with God. Rabbi Gilman urged, in fact required, all of his students at JTS to develop a personal theology through reading and dialogue and eventually writing. He would say that part of being a mature, engaged Jew is to think deeply about what we believe about God. The answers to our questions may not come easily, but we should embrace with an open mind the challenge of crafting our own understanding of what God means. Second, the idea that revelation was silent and thus each person heard God's voice in an individual way is a reminder to us that Judaism is focused less on what we believe and more on what we do. The cohesive bond, the thread that links us together, is our way of life, our shared traditions, the rhythm of Jewish life as it is lived each day of every year. While Judaism, of course, has core beliefs, the actions we take to make a difference in our community, to make life a little bit better, one act of love and thoughtfulness at a time, and what we do to try to make the world a better place, that is primarily what unites us as a people, not our belief system. And third, by teaching that the revelation was an experience of silence, Menachem Mendel of Rimanov reminds us that Torah is an ever-evolving idea, not one fixed in time or place. We all have an opportunity, indeed an obligation, a mitzvah, if you will, to contribute to our collective understanding of what Torah is and how it should be understood, to engage in the study and discussion of the meaning of Torah so that it remains vital and relevant as we pass it on to those who come next. Shabbat Shalom.
Good morning, good Shabbos to the congregation of Conservative Synagogue at Israel of Riverdale. My name is Nathaniel Ribner. I am a musician from New York, not far away. I live in Washington Heights. I've actually had the pleasure of singing at your synagogue before a couple of years ago. It was wonderful. I hope everyone can get back in person real soon. Special thank you to Rabbi Katz, Rabbi Fried, for having me do this. This is so exciting. And even a greater honor for me to partner with Rabbi Cooper, who is my sister's father-in-law. It's a beautiful idea, and I'm so excited to participate. I'm an a cappella singer. I sing in a group called 613, and you'll see by my piece what I mean by 613, because it's an a cappella group or a vocal play group. What I wanted to sing about for you this Shabbos is about sort of the highlight of our Parsha, which is obviously when we are receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. And there is a saying, Vayeechan Yisrael, Nehged HaHar, the nation of Israel camped facing the mountain. And Rashi has a commentary on this, K'ish Echad LaZeh Echad, just like one man with one heart. And I hope that this is meaningful to you. So here we go. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad. K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar. K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Kulam K'Echad. Arevim LaZeh K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar. K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Kulam K'Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar Kulanu K'Echad. K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar. K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Kulam K'Echad. Arevim LaZeh K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Vayeechan Sham Yisrael Nehged HaHar. K'ish Echad, oy LaZeh Echad. Kulam K'Echad.